10 Minutes in Defense of Democracies, the podcast, brought to you by the nonprofit United States Global Initiative. We'll talk to decision makers, thinkers, and influencers in our campaign to advocate for American global leadership. Please visit us at unitedstatesglobalinitiative.org. I'm your host, Howard Gold. It is April 14th, 2022, and our guest is democracy activist Oleksandra Matviichuk, live from Kyiv, Ukraine, on 10 Minutes in Defense of Democracy. You have been a human rights lawyer. You've been an advocate for democracy for many years, going back before you started your legal career. When you started your advocacy for democracy in Ukraine, what did that involve?
I was an activist of youth movement in my student time. And before it, I was deeply examining Ukrainian history and especially Soviet period. And I was inspired by dissident movement. And I have a very sharp feeling of injustice. Maybe that's why I decided to become a lawyer, graduated law faculty, have a Master of Law degree, and decided to protect human rights in my country. We live in a very interconnected world, and everything which we observe in Ukraine was only a reflection of the negative global trend in our region. That's why when I, with a team, established Center for Civil Liberties, and we choose our priorities. One of the priorities was cooperation with human rights organizations from post-Soviet countries, because we need to build networks and raise the global problems on a global level. If authoritarian countries cooperate between themselves and use the same authoritarian know-how, so we as a human rights defenders from different countries also have to unite our efforts and to stand with a common front. Intervention started after Revolution of Dignity, and during Revolution of Dignity, I, together with my team, created an initiative Euromaidan SOS. We work 24 hours a day and provide legal and other aid to persecuted protesters. And every day, hundreds of people who were beaten, who were tortured, who were accused in fabricated criminal or administrative charge pass through our care. So we sleep 3 and 4 hours a day and have no time for reflection or prediction of future. That's why it's now very obvious that when Ukraine obtains a chance to democratic transformation, Russia will immediately start this war. But for that moment in February 2014, it was unexpectedly for us.
So back in 2014, there's that famous picture of you speaking with then Vice President Joe Biden. Were you disappointed in the lack of American assistance to Ukraine at that time, after the 2014 invasions?
I'm sure that sooner or later Ukraine obtained appropriate assistance from democratic countries, because I know that there are a lot of things which have no limitation on human border. It's every people in the world can understand a pain when I told the recent testimonies of women from Mariupol. Her 19-year-old child were killed on her eyes by Russian soldiers. Every people, regardless of citizenship, can understand the feelings of this mother. Also, freedom, democracy, human rights has also no limitation in border. That's why I'm looking in future with optimism. I know that sooner or later, democratic countries like United States of America will provide all the appropriate assistance to Ukrainian young democracy. I hope I will survive to this moment.
This week, President Biden stated that what was happening in Ukraine was a genocide. from a legal standpoint, in a political standpoint, is it helpful when an American president says that, or does it complicate matters?
I'm very grateful because I think that we have to name the things which they are. I know as a lawyer that crime of genocide is a crime of crimes. And that's why it's very hard to prove in international courts. But when we speak about reality, we will and examine Russian propaganda, we will find very clear genocidal intent, because all people in Russian propaganda clearly states that Ukrainian nation has no right exist at all.
Right, and right there is sort of the prima facie. Just building on what you said, if you try to denigrate a people by saying they have no right to exist, isn't that's sort of step one in trying to justify any of these war crimes that we've seen? Isn't that true?
Yes, and this is provides a pattern of concrete behavior. So in such way, Russian propaganda and Russian political leadership legitimize all killings and rapes of Ukrainian civilians, which is committed by Russian soldiers. And unfortunately, I can clearly state that Russia used war crime as a tool, as a method of this warfare.
So what would you say to people living in democracies right now outside of Ukraine, where the threat is from inside their democracies?
I will say that I can understand their feeling. They still try to think in a logic of previous world, but previous world not exist anymore. The whole international system of security and peace is broken. And we live in very interconnected world. Only the spread of freedom make our world safer. In practical meaning, it means that if we will not stop Putin in Ukraine, he will go further. And it will be only a matter of time which next country will be his next target.
Do you see threats to democracy that exist in the United States or in other Western democracies?
Yes, these threats exist because in Western democracies, the generation is inheriting democracy, freedom, and human rights from their parents and grandparents. That's why they don't fight for the democracy. They, majority, like very consumer of these values, not barrier of the values. And that's why some people can very easily exchange democracy, freedom, and human rights for populistic claims, for some illusion of safety, or for some proposal of economic goods, etc. But when dramatic times appeared, it's become very clear that freedom is a fundamental value. And that's why I will apply to people in United States of America with a call. I'm a human rights defender. I'm not military expert. I'm not diplomats. I'm not politicians. But I know for sure that peoples matter and they can provide essential, significant change to the whole game. And I ask all of you not to stay indifferent. You can do a lot. Even my colleague in Russia, who now under constant pressure tried to organize peaceful assemblies, they were beaten, they were imprisoned, but they still act because, first of all, we are human beings. I ask you to make pressure to your own government in order to provide all necessary support to Ukraine. Don't be like observer of this horrible things which is going on. It's not a movie. It's our life.
So lastly, and I so much appreciate your time, Benjamin Franklin was widely credited with the comment, do we have a monarchy or do we have a republic? And he stated, we have a republic if we can keep it. Do you think that Ukraine can keep their democracy, can keep their freedom?
I'm sure that we will win sooner or later. Putin won't return us to the past, but it couldn't be like this. The future plays against Putin. The only problem is that we are paying for our future an enormous price. And that's why Ukraine is now a far front of civilization battle between authoritarianism and democracies. And I know that with support of the whole world, we can stop Putin and his authoritarian regime.
And I thank you so much for being here and with the United States Global Initiative. I just wish you all good health and good success.
Thank you very much.
All right.